So, Lou, we obviously in the podcast a couple weeks ago touched on the North Stars' run to the Stanley Cup Finals in the 81 season, for which you had constructed that roster and were GM. Now let's fast forward 10 years, 91, and of course the team makes another, in this case, again, unexpected run to the Cup Finals. Take me through how your role had evolved by that time, and you know how things had definitely changed for you from being GM to the new role that you were in by 1991.
Well, in '88, when I quit being general manager, I was going to go into the business world, but the Guns convinced me to stay around as president. So I stayed around as president for their tenure, and then when Howard Baldwin bought the team, and then he immediately, within 3 months, he sold it, controlling ownership to Norm Green. And Norm Green came in, and he came in, took the title of president and governor, and so I became executive vice president. And I had to stay one more year by my contract, so I told him I'd stay one more year with him. And I really thought that, because I already had a job that I was going to, and I had to put that on hold, so I decided, I'd leave in April because it didn't look like we were going to be a very good team, and we'd probably miss the playoffs or be out of it right away. So I made a deal with my employer at the time, where I was going in the financial business that I'm in now, that I would come in April 15th after the season was over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, little did we know we were going to go right to the finals. So I ended up working half a day with the North Stars from basically May 1st and half a day with Piper Capital Management because I had already taken that other job. So I had to work both places until the finals were over.
So that year started to, as I recall, the regular season opener that year was at Met Center, and I believe I was there. It was October of 90, Louis. And it was a 3-2 loss to the Blues. And as I recall being there, the arena was largely empty. What was the feelings sort of when that year started as to the health of the team, I guess not only just on the ice, but off the ice as well?
If you remember, during that time, a couple things were going on. One, they were building the Mall of America. So we had, $70 million worth of, at that time, which was significant worth of road work going on around the Met.
Yep.
So it wasn't easy getting in, and it wasn't easy getting out, and that was not helping our crowds either. And then we also had the Timberwolves opening their new arena downtown, and they had just gotten into the NBA.
Mm-hmm. So
it was a new franchise with all the glamour and, of course, all the hype, and so that was hurting our ticket sales as well. And that's why Norm Green was trying to do a couple things with the Met Center itself to try and improve the facility and trying to spiff it up. And he put $7 million in seats, redoing all the seats in the building and other things. And that's why he's also trying to get basically a shopping mall connecting the Met Center with the Mall of America, so that would help offset some of his losses while he built the crowds back up.
As I recall then, just to go back on that, Lou, was that the year that Norm introduced the ice dancers, and there was some type of, if I'm correct on this, cash giveaway during games as well to try to incentivize fans to show up?
Yeah, he was doing some of that. What really happened is when he took over and our crowds were down, and he had his partner, Morris Belzberg, who was involved in Budget Rent-A-Car, and from Calgary, where Norm was from. And myself, we went to Detroit to meet with Jim Lights, who was president of the Red Wings. And they had, if you remember, at that time started to really fill their building after they had very sparse crowds there, and wanted us to go over there and see some of the things they did to generate sales. And so, we went over there and looked at some of the ideas they had, brought him back, some things he liked, some things he didn't like, and then he decided, to go and institute the ice dancers and also the giveaway.
Okay, so that team goes during the course of that season, Lou, 27, 39, and 14, and finishes fourth in the Norris Division. And despite the record gets in the playoffs, was there any point in time during the course of that year that you did see, though, what you thought was a positive uptick or growth? Was there anything, I guess, in entering the playoffs in your mind that gave you any feeling of confidence when that first round series started against the Blackhawks? And, of course, that Blackhawks team, had 106 points. So the points in that playoff series were 106 for Chicago, 68 for the North Stars. Was there anything, though, that gave you confidence about that club?
The only thing that gave me confidence was the fact if you go back to 82, the results were reversed. We won the division, and the Blackhawks were terrible like that. And we had 97, and I don't know, they might have had 56 or some crazy thing, and they put us out. And the fact that now the roles were reversed was the only thing I could remember saying, well, maybe this time it's our time to do that. Not that I felt it was going to happen, because I didn't. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'd already taken a job somewhere else because I didn't think we'd be around very long. And I just was, I was doing the telecast during that time for the playoffs, so I went and did the telecast along with Doug McLeod for our games, and I didn't think, I'd be doing many telecasts, and before you knew it, we put them out, and we started moving along, and the team was playing really well, and we had a lot of guys from our previous North Star team that had played so well. They had gotten Bobby Smith back to go along with Brian Bellows. Casey was in that. Neil Broughton was still there. We had Modano. So when you look at it, we had more talent than the record shows, and the moves that Bobby Clark and Bob Gainey made to add some of those things to the roster, like Bobby Smith, it helped. We still, I think Steve Payne was still there. We had I want to say 10, 12 guys, well, about 12 from the roster we had back in the mid-'80s there. So we still had some pretty good guys there. Mm-hmm. But they filled in, and Jack Farrar first was the general manager before the team moved, and he added like Tenorti, which was really big. He was a real good defenseman, and Shane Churla. So between Ferrara and Clark, they added some nice pieces there to improve the roster. It didn't translate into wins during the year, but they were starting to come together and then played extremely well.
Bob Gainey was coach of that team, too. What do you recall about him and him coming here, obviously after a very successful career with Montreal, to take over the North Stars?
Well, I first of all, Gainey meant a lot to Mike Modano's career, because Bob was one of the best complete players of all time. He wasn't a great offensive player, but he was the best defensive player in the league. So his knowledge of how to play defensively, first of all, helped the team tremendously throughout the whole team. But more importantly, as Modano's career evolved, he taught him how to be a much better defensive player, and that made Modano the complete, superb player that he became. And he was, Modano was essentially a young player that won 2 years, rookie, and in the league, and so he had a lot to learn about playing the game. He had the supreme talents, but you still have to learn to play it properly. And Bob, I remember during the game, in the training year, I couldn't believe it. I'm watching, we were way down in the score, and it's 5-on-3, and he's got Modano sitting on the bench. I'm thinking, oh my God. But Modano had not played well defensively during the game, so he was just going to sit him until he got the message. But he got through to him eventually, and as you know, they both moved on to Dallas, where they won the Cup. And
sure,
Modano was the reason why they won the Cup, and Gainey was the reason why Modano became such a great all-around player.
So how proud were you of Mike's success as you watched that too? And I know he hadn't become a complete player by that time in '91, Lou, but because he was in fact why you had gone to the Guns, and you've told the story before and said, I can make the playoffs if you want me to, but if we don't make the playoffs and we're not good, we're going to get the first overall pick, and I know exactly who I'm going to draft. So how satisfying was that to you to watch his success?
Well, it was tremendously successful, but our people, just were enamored with Mike, and as he said, well, we could have made a deal, maybe made the playoffs. I don't know if we really would have, but we were only 4 points out, so we had a chance. But Modano was such a difference maker. If you saw him, and as you alluded to earlier, Judd, the building was half full, not even half full. And so the fact is, you not only got to win, but you got to sell tickets. And there's a couple ways of selling tickets. One, and first and foremost, is winning. Secondly, is having an entertaining and dynamic team, but having somebody that really brings you out of your seat, has charisma, can draw. Modano is that type of player. He's a guy that I don't care who you are, where you are. If you like hockey, you're going to enjoy watching him because he'll bring you out of the seats. The way he can fly, the way he can handle a puck, the way he can shoot, the way he sees the ice. He had all the offensive things you need to be a dynamic player, which he became.
So,
and to see him go along like that was really gratifying.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also gratifying to see him develop into, one of the best players. He's in the Hockey Hall of Fame, and you don't get in there unless you're among the best players of all time.
How much, Lou, do you think that experience in making that extended playoff run so early in his career helped him, too, as he matured as a player?
Oh, I think that helped, so much, because when you're playing a playoff run like that and you're as dynamic and as good as he was, then you start getting the confidence you belong. You start getting the feeling that, hey, I can do what I need to do to make this team become the best. And, in the finals, especially, he's going against Mario Lemieux, who just dominated and turned the whole thing around. And got one of the greatest goals of all time that they're still showing on TV all the time. But
yes,
having come as far as they did and winning a couple games and competing as hard as they did against the Stanley Cup champion, then you know that you're capable of doing that. And then as his career went along and he learned how to really dominate. And he learned how to dominate because he became a complete player. He became not only great offensively, he was one of the best defensive forwards in the league, thanks to Bob Gainey. Now he did something that not even a handful at most can do.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was not only dynamic and one of the best players in the league offensively, he was one of the top 5 players defensively. And he had the skill to do all that. And he's so, as you remember, so charismatic, so exciting when he's skating down the ice and you see his jersey flopping, and he's so fast and shoots so hard that people buy tickets to see him. He's a type of guy that if you're talking in a restaurant or something about a game and people are saying, "Oh, this team's got so and so," oh, I got to go see him. I'll go see him. I'll buy a ticket to see him. That's the type of player he was.
So you have, at that point, Mike starting to have success as well, and he's the guy you drafted. On the flip side of that Stanley Cup run, and you brought this guy up as well, is Bobby Smith, who is back now from, his time with the Canadiens, back in a North Stars jersey, the guy who, when you became GM, you basically had earmarked as the guy to start to build the franchise around back then. What's that like to be in the broadcast booth and seeing the success? And two of the pillars are this young guy who became a Hall of Fame type talent, but also Bobby back and contributing to that club as well.
Well, I felt really excited about it because Bobby's the first guy drafted, so I really was close to him. I really, it became more than just a player. It became something special to me, and I was really hurt when he came to me and wanted to be traded because I never envisioned myself trading him. And the good fortune is I traded him to Montreal, and he played with Gainey in Montreal. So when Gainey was back there, and Clark, and they needed some pieces, they got Bobby Smith, and Bobby was happy to come back to play for Gainey because he played with him so long. He knew how good and what a smart hockey man Gainey was, and Bobby Clark, being the leader that he was happy to get back because he had already won a cup in his career. With the Canadiens, he reached the levels he wanted to reach, and he always loved Minnesota. It's just the fact that he felt the coach wasn't playing him enough when he was here, and that's why he wanted to go. But now he was coming back to be with people that he really revered, and to see those two guys there. And plus, I had like in my mind, three other special pieces. One was Neil Broughton that I drafted way back in '78 or '79, and then the other was Dino Ciccarelli. I signed as a free agent, and then the other was Brian Bellows, who was another first-round pick. So they're all on the team, and well, maybe no, Dino was gone.
Dino was gone, right?
For our trade, but the other two are still there, and they were special pieces. And we, I signed Casey as a free agent, so he was a goaltender. There were a lot of people there that I was, so close to, or really followed a lot and cared a lot about. So I was happy to see their success.
Right, and so clearly the stress or pressure on you wasn't as great as it was when you were GM. But nonetheless, Lou, what was that like calling games during that playoff run on TV? Because knowing you, there probably was some stress.
Well, there was, because we wanted to win, and if you remember, just before the finals, I believe it was Edmonton Oilers we beat, and to beat the Oilers.
Yep.
To beat the Oilers after their great runs and still had a great team, and how many times they beat us. And I still remember doing the interview after the game, the winning game there in the locker room, the exhilaration I felt and everybody else in there felt, but the feeling to knock them off, it was special. It was special. I must have done, I don't know, about 20 minutes, 25 minutes just of interviewing people around the locker room at that time, and I can still remember the exuberance. The locker room was crazy. It was, it was a huge thing that we ended up beating Edmonton, and we were, like you said, we were 16th, I think, that year in the league of the 16 in points of the 16 teams that made the playoffs, and here we go knock off the vaunted Oilers before we get to play Pittsburgh.
And so, the playoffs that year it took the North Stars 6 games, Lou, to beat Chicago, 6 games to beat St. Louis, 5 to beat the Oilers and get to the Stanley Cup Finals. After the team beat St. Louis, was there a point then, you're through 2 rounds at that point, was there a feeling then that this might be special?
I'd like to say yes, but I got to say no. We still were such underdogs. And the fact that we were getting to the semifinals was something that I believe was a major achievement, and everybody felt that way. The expectations were not that we were going to beat the Oilers, but the fact that we got to the semifinals, and what a great thing this was. What if we could end up beating the Oilers too?
Mm-hmm. And so you get to the Stanley Cup Finals, Louis, and play Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh in Game 1 of that series and win 5-4. What do you recall yourself thinking as the North Stars go into Pittsburgh, as you were talking about playing this great team, Mario's on that team, and coming away, at least after Game 1, with a 1-game lead?
Well, I got to tell you, if you remember back to our 81 team, when we went to the finals against the Islanders, the key in that run was, if you check all the games, Boston, Buffalo, Calgary, we won the first game of every series. And so we won the series.
Yep.
Now, when we played the Islanders, we were playing well in that first game, but then we took penalties. Goring got 2 short-handed goals against us. So we lost the first game. We lost the series. So now when you look at this run we got in 91, and now we're in Pittsburgh, win the first game. Now I'm thinking back to 81 saying, oh, my God, every time we won the first game, we won on the road, we won the series. This might be the year. Now this is really the first time that I thought the North Stars have a chance to win are going to win the Cup, because now we win an important game. The team is playing so well all the way through. Clark and Gainey had that team just churning, and the players themselves were just on fire. The confidence with which they were playing, the goaltending they were getting, everything seemed like it's gelling together. And then you go into Pittsburgh and you beat them, and now in your mind you got to think, now the home ice advantage swings to us. There's no reason why we're not going to win. So that's where I was at that time.
Yeah, and Casey was fantastic, right?
He was unbelievable.
Johnny was, yeah.
He was terrific, yeah.
So, yeah, in fact, if you go back and look at that 91 playoff run, Lou, at Chicago, Game 1 in the first round, 4-3 North Stars win in overtime. Game 1 at St. Louis again in the second round, 2-1 win by the Stars. Third round, Game 1 at the Oilers, of course, 3-1 win, and then get to the Cup Finals and win 5-4. So you're right, that definitely throughout all those series set a tone.
Yeah, and not only set a tone, it brings you back to 81. It's reminiscent of that. When every time we won Game 1, we won the series. And like I maintain today, when you go into the playoffs, in the Stanley Cup playoffs, if you take a look, the one game that really you can steal more than any other is the first game of the series. So I don't mind if I got a team in the Stanley Cup playoffs that we're on the road first, because it just seems that game, more than any other game, you have the opportunity to win on the road, and you swing home ice into your advantage. And so now, after having done it again for 3 rounds, and you go to Pittsburgh and do it, maybe being as superstitious or OCD as I am, I think back to 81, and now I'm feeling, oh my goodness, this really is it, because now we finally did win the first game in the championship round, which we were unable to do against the Islanders, and so this might be the difference, which turned out it wasn't, thanks to Mario Lemieux, because the guys, if you're going to name the top, easily in the top 5, maybe the top 3, and sometimes some people even say the top 2 and 1. So
he just took control, right?
He just took control of the series. When you're 6'5" and you could do all the things he did, and if you look back at Mario Lemieux's career, even though he was great and he was great out of the gate, he was like a Modano early, all offense, no defense. And just, not the complete player that he became. But not only that, in my mind, the most important thing that happened in Mario Lemieux's career was in 1987 in the Canada Cup.
Yep.
And I say that because in the Canada Cup he played with Wayne Gretzky. And in the Canada Cup, they had to beat the Russians. And throughout that Canada Cup, Mario Lemieux is a teammate of Wayne Gretzky. He's playing with him a lot of times on the ice. And I really believe that he learned to commit even more to being a leader, the dominant player, and doing what it takes to become the best he could be by being with Gretzky. I firmly believe the effect that Gretzky's, being a teammate had on Lemieux was the turning point in Lemieux's career where he became even more dominant than he ever was. From 87 on, he was probably the best player in the league. His totals, I think if you look back, were unbelievable and certainly matched Gretzky's. And the guy, 6'5", capable of doing everything, did everything. And that's why Pittsburgh was so good.
And that again proves your long-standing point, where if you get really bad or are just awful at the right time, it can be the best thing.
Yeah. Well,
just another example,
Judd, even in this day and age.
Yeah.
it all depends when you get bad. I mean,
Yep.
you know, you get bad at the right time, and you get a guy like Toronto gotten Austin Matthews, and Buffalo gotten Jack Eichel, and Edmonton's gotten Connor McDavid. You got that kind of talent. You got the major building block. Now, it still takes a lot to win. Look at Edmonton. They've still, you know, made a number of mistakes where they haven't been able to fill in the pieces. But I guarantee you, they will get there if McDavid stays there. That they'll be one of the better players as they're going through this. And you know, Buffalo's already made a lot of strides in what they're adding, and so is Toronto. And it's always, you know, you get a generational player every now and then, and when you get one, then you got to keep them and make certain you fill in the pieces around them, because then you got success for a long, long time.
So, Lou, you're at that point about to leave the North Stars organization, but you're a lifelong, you know, devotee to that franchise. What was that like to just to watch the success that team had with Bobby Clarke as GM, and as we talked about, Gainey as coach? Because Bobby Clarke as GM, you know, I grew up with him being a Flyer. He's a lifelong, at that point, Flyer. What was that like to look at the GM chair and coach's chair and have a great from the Canadians and a great from the Flyers in the GM chair at that point in charge of the North Stars?
I know it's magnificent, because those two guys, in my mind, were among the greatest ever. And I competed against them for 10 years, and not only that, I was on the Players Association with them for 7 years, and in the case of Gainey, 6 years, and Bobby 6 years, but I was there for 7 years, and so I got to know them really well and respect them a lot, and I just take a look at that team, the North Star team, and the team that I've been associated with all my life, and a lot of kids that I had drafted and brought there. And then I look down and see them being run by two, in my mind, of the best competitors ever played the game, and champions from Montreal and Philadelphia. It's just like icing on the cake. I just loved it. I was just thrilled with it, and I guess, you know, you get in the finals again, and you start just agonizing again. Please let this happen, and I just you just think that maybe finally this is the year, because those guys have been fortunate enough to have won cups, and that's something I was never able to do, and some that still bugs me to this day, because that's the ultimate, and that's what you want to do when you're competing, and it was just a terrific ride anyway. And the fact that they did so much to bring the North Stars back, but not only that, develop the careers of the kids that they had, because those two guys know the game so well and competed so hard. And the guys looking at him, when you're talking to Bob Gainey, and then he's telling you something, you might be upset the way he's telling you something, or you might be upset with what he's saying. But you can't be thinking that he doesn't know what he's talking about, because the proof is in the pudding.
Well, and as I recall, he defined the term stoic, right? I mean, he was there. There was no BS there with Bob Gainey.
No, he's just and he went through a lot. I don't know if you remember, he lost his
his wife, right?
Child. His wife, child, and the guy just. He's battled so much through his life and just forges on, and he's had a magnificent and parallel career, and the leadership that he exudes not only demonstrates and everybody's aware of, but you feel it when you're around them. You feel it, and those kids had to feel it. They had to feel it, and the drive and determination of Clarke. I mean. Everybody knows the story of him playing when he shouldn't have played, with being a diabetic, what he had to go through to succeed, and there's no stopping him, and he rode it right to the top, and so that team couldn't have had better leadership than they had.
So you played against both those guys, as you talked about, for a long time. Did you?
Yeah.
Did you learn more about them as far as competitors, though, when you got the opportunity, even though they were done playing, to work with them?
Did I what?
Did you learn more about them as competitors? Because both were fierce in different ways.
You know, I played against them so much, and I associated with so much as player meetings, especially Clark and I. We did a number of things together, and in fact, Bobby, one morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, which is 8 o'clock Eastern time, but 7 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings, and it's Clark, and I said, hello, and he says, Louis, it's Bob. I says, what's up? And he says, how did you know when to quit? And he meant when I retired as general manager. And I said, why? He said, I got to know, how did you know when to quit? And I said, well, I'm going to tell you, when I was thinking about it, I didn't know what to do, and we had the All-Star game in Quebec. It was either the All-Star game or the Russians, playing the Russians. It had a big sort of dinner and luncheon for the Board of Governors, and Sammy Pollock was there, and Sammy was out of the league by then. He had retired. He was in the real estate business, and he was at the meal, and I was going through the line with him, and I said, Sammy, I said, how did you know when to quit? And he turned to me and he says, Louis, you'll know. And so I said, Bobby, you'll know. And I said, I told him the Pollock story. And then, he retired shortly after that with Philly, and he was out of hockey before, he came back with the North Stars.
Okay, so this was before he took the North Stars job?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Mm-hmm. Just because of the pressure and wore him down at the time?
Yeah, you get enough. You just feel I've had enough. I don't know, in different ways. Me, because it was my, basically the Mayo Clinic told me I either change the way you are or change jobs. I tried to change the way I was. I couldn't, so I changed jobs.
Right.
But him, whatever motivated him to leave, he left. And then he went away for a while. He missed it, then he came back.
So did you, when you were about to leave then, and the team goes on the Stanley Cup run, spring of 91, Lou, when you left then, and clearly you were forging a new path for yourself, did you have any inkling that things were about to go as wrong as they did quickly? Because, in the spring of 91, Norm Green was a hero here. People were chanting, Norm, Norm, Norm. Did you have a gut feeling about, not necessarily the team was going to up and move, but a gut feeling about the fact that this might not be the greatest sustainable plan here?
No, I didn't. Because now you end on the high note when I'm leaving. And I should have known, though. I should have known, because if you go back and look at the jerseys, Norm had me redesign a jersey. He said, we need another jersey, just the stars. I don't want the end there. I just want the stars. And so I went to Bill Mack. Bill Mack, he's a tremendous artist. He lives in the Twin Cities. He's housed players for us, and his family was always very, very supportive of the North Stars. And Bill is the guy that designed the Hobie Baker Award, the sculpture.
Sure.
Bill's a sculpture guy, and he's really good. So I went to Bill. I said, Norm wants another jersey with the stars on. Can you come up with something? So he's the guy that designed the Stars jersey with the star in the front. Now, unbeknownst to me, I don't even know if he was talking just Stars then, or maybe just had a feeling of going somewhere else and keeping just the name Stars. So I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. But as it turns out, that became, the name for the Dallas Stars, and he kept the Stars. But to me, I just thought he just wanted another, like Norm had all these quirky things. If he walked around the concourse before a game, he'd come back to some fan and give him an idea, and then many times it was outlandish ideas, and he'd come down and he said, Louis, we got to do this. And I said, Norm, you got to quit walking the concourse. And, it just, it was different. So, but he was committed when he put that $7 million in the building, and then having that run and seemingly being on top of the world, that I thought things were well on its way to being very, very strong and successful there.
Weren't they putting in suites as the playoffs were starting, or something along those lines?
No. I had put in the suites before that.
Okay.
I put in 20 suites, and that was one of the reasons why they did move, and when the Guns did move, is because we had 20 suites. We knew we had to go to 60. And the Guns paid for the 20 suites. So we tried to get Sports and Facilities Commission to give us money to improve the building, because they own the building, and pay for the suites. And they wouldn't do it. Then Norm tried the same thing. They wouldn't do it. So, it should have been evident to us that they were trying to force us downtown, and didn't want us to be successful there. And the reason why, because now you got a building downtown, the Target Center.
Yep.
And you have the Met Center. Now, the Target Center was built for $80 million at that time, I think it was, or no, maybe it was even more. Anyway, the fact was that there was a big mortgage, of course, on the building downtown. We had no debt on our building at the Met. So if say, Billy Joel was coming to Minnesota,
mm-hmm.
and he has two choices to play, we could undercut their bid all the time, because we had much less expenses to overcome. So we got all the concerts.
Yep.
So we're getting all the concerts. They got no revenue but the basketball team. So what do they need? They need us to either go downtown or go out of town. And we didn't go downtown, so they wanted to force us out of town. And that being not just the owners of the Timberwolves, but the people downtown, the lobbyists, the newspaper owners, everybody on the property, the whole thing. Everybody was against the North Star staying out there because they couldn't support the other building.
What was the most outlandish idea that Norm came back that you can recall from walking the concourse with?
Oh, I can't remember now. I mean, there was so many of them that they were just, he would walk up there and then think that we had to do something different. I didn't pay much attention to him. I just, I didn't like him at all. Like one of the, Norm loved the feel of being, sort of among the people, leader of the people, and them loving him, which is good. That's fine. But so he wanted to always be, among them. Like one time we were sending a team out to Rice Park in St. Paul. Years before that, I started having a calendar made. I made a deal with Pillsbury where they would pay for the calendars, buy so many seats, and then we'd take a unique picture and we'd pass out the calendars. And one year they're at the maybe an orchestra hall downtown with tuxedos and tennis shoes on, or all different things, And so they were going to Rice Park to take a picture, and he saw the team going down, and he said, "Where are they going?" I said, "They're going downtown to take a picture to do our calendar." He says, "Is Clark and Gainey in the picture?" I said, "No, they're not in the picture." He says, "Am I in the picture?" I said, "No, you're not in the picture." He said, "Why aren't we in the picture?" I said, "It's just a team. We've always done this, a deal with Pillsbury." And he said, "Well, I didn't sign off on it." I said, "You haven't signed off on a deal since you've been here." "I signed off on all the deals." He said, "Well, tell them we want more money." That I haven't signed this. "No, I'm not doing that." And he says, "Well, I didn't sign. We can get more money." I said, "No, my word is my word. I'm not doing that." So we didn't do it. But he just, he wanted to be involved in those kind of things.
Right. Last thing, Lou, did you, so the 81 run to the finals, you were confident after that team was going to remain very solid for years to come. The 91 run, as you walked out the door there, what was your feeling, not about off the ice situations, but about where that team was at the next year and how long that was going to be sustainable?
Well, I thought they had a great foundation, a great base. I thought the fans were back, and Norm was committed to staying there. He showed his commitment by putting money into the team. That's why, as much as people get upset with him for leaving, I got to tell you, the Sports and Facilities Commission did not support him. They did not give him the help he needed, and he couldn't afford it. his real estate holdings weren't as profitable as they had been or were going to be, were able to be, and he needed help and he wasn't getting it. So I didn't know all this, and when he didn't get the help to put the money in the building and do more, he got that offer from Dallas. He was able to do it, and he moved it. But that was very surprising to me because I thought, this team, again, has got a great nucleus of a team. It's got unbelievable leadership, with Clark and Gainey, and Norm loved being in hockey. So I figured he'd do anything he had to do to give them the assets they needed to be successful. So I was just blown away that it never materialized where the North Stars stayed there.
All right, sir. Thank you much, Lou. I'll talk to you next week.